This joint meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities will be recorded. All right, Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and the Sewer Authority for Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. For all those joining by telephone or WebEx, I'd ask you to mute your device when you're not speaking, and when you do speak, please state your name for the clarity of the record. All right, moving on to agenda item 2, which is a 15-minute public comment period. Are there any members of the public on that would like to speak? Do we have any? Okay, quiet. All right, if people do arrive and like to speak, we can reopen up agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes, which was in your board package. Oh, I want to state before we get started that Mike Gopal is not attending, and Sean will be arriving, but he'll be a few minutes late, so we have a quorum, so we're going to go. All right, so approval of the minutes, which was in your board package, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bill. I'll second. Thank you, Robert. All right, is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. The minutes are approved. All right, agenda item number 4, we have the leadership team template and the financial update. We'll start with the leadership team template. Are there any questions or comments people have on that? That's in your board package.
I have a couple.
All right.
You know, under the solar sale property, you said owner Grossman is dividing after the gas service to separate out an additional 30,000 square feet. Is that because they're not using that, or?
Correct. And there's and looking at I guess we can say it here, EVs, looking at using it as a warehouse space. Mary Lou is our main contact on that. Anything else, Mary Lou?
No, they're splitting it out so that they can separate out the utilities.
That was never utilized by Silver. At one time, they were talking about an auxiliary business of theirs that does frames and stuff, but that didn't materialize, or hasn't.
You know, under Sawmill and Emerald Estates, do we encourage underground, are they your underground utilities at both those subdivisions, or are they?
On the sawmill?
Yes, both Emerald and Sawmill.
I think one is pole line and the other one's underground.
And the pole line is only a pole line because it was already there.
Oh,
Correct.
Was that Emerald?
Yes.
Yes, but going forward for subdivision, we do.
You do all, you guys all good, okay, good, thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. I have a couple of questions here, if I can find them. All right, under purchasing for the transformers, we talked about having a hard time getting those. Is that getting better at this point?
Nope. Eric, give the latest on that.
No, unfortunately, it's actually getting worse. So now, for the everyday transformers, 25 and 50 kVA ones that are primarily for residential use, we are now seeing a 72-week lead time on those. And the costs continue to go up as well. So now a single 25 kVA transformer that historically cost between $1,000 and $2,000 is now between $9,000 and $10,000.
That's just the standard residential.
That is totally crazy. I don't understand how the pandemic could have caused that. That's nuts.
Well, and there's a couple of challenges there too. So from the suppliers that we use on a regular basis, they pretty much say the same thing as everybody else, that they had supply chain shortfalls and now they have labor shortfalls. But in addition to that, the DOE is now entertaining an increase in efficiency standards on transformers. So if you remember when I first talked about this a while back, we were APPA and pretty much the utility industry as a whole was trying to encourage the DOE to lower the efficiency standard. They increased it only maybe 3 years ago to help the supply chain. We have now gone from encouraging them to drop it to encouraging them not to raise it. So DOE now has a new proposal that will raise that efficiency standard even higher, which will further complicate the supply chain.
If there would be a wealthy economy, if there's a higher standard for transformers, nobody can get.
Maybe that's the truth.
All our trade associations are working very hard to lobby. When we had our meetings with our Washington representatives, we also provided this information to them. At that time, it was a surprise to a few.
So what is the impact of it? I mean, we're not a boom area. I mean, there aren't huge housing developments being.
It's storms, Bob. It's beyond just new
Okay.
development. So if we have a big windstorm, all these pole-mounted transformers, if the pole comes down, there's a good chance that transformer is no longer used.
Okay.
So it becomes a system reliability as well as a growth issue. And we were supposed to get transformers in last month, and you're still calling, and there's no knowledge of when they're gonna be coming in. That was not meeting the original dates.
And are these ultimately domestic, or are they imported, or?
All ours are domestic.
So what's our inventory at this point?
So we are sort of okay. And what's starting to happen is we're using odd-sized transformers that we normally would. Too large in a lot of areas, and maybe running secondary farther than we normally would. So it's not great for a system efficiency, and it's not great as good for reliability. And so we'll probably see some voltage issues if this continues, and we're doing the best we can to get them. You're buying a lot of used transformers as well, or refurbishing our transformers. Things that we normally just send off to the scrap, now get new bushings and a new paint job and come back.
We do that work ourselves,
Thank you.
So what we do here is, we will, assess the transformer, we can test the transformer here, but when it needs to get refurbished, it goes out, and there's quite a few companies that do that work. But there used to be a lot more scrapping of transformers. Now, you don't throw anything away. Cross arms, specialty items used to always, just get replaced. We have to reuse a few things here and there.
Okay, thank you. All right, under the Pura audits, it said that there was a biannual inspection scheduled from the end of March. Was that done, and how did it go?
It went very well. Typical recommendations from Pure, but no violations. The recommendations aren't anything really out of the ordinary, just the best management practices in the industry and clean up of a couple of things. So overall, very well.
Good.
And when they come in, it's very detailed. It's not, they look at the procedure, they look at the records going to the procedure, they look at the qualifications for the person doing the procedure. And, Barry and his team have done an outstanding job. And, through our GIS system, our record keeping system, as you said, Barry, things we're providing in an hour is stuff that takes days that some of the other companies do. And Pure, really can see how well we do with these audits.
All right, and under electric, the North Main Street substation upgrade, said it was on hold, but it's scheduled for June of 2023. So is that moving now?
Yep, so that's still on track. Our engineer right now, our engineer consultant right now is working on finalizing the final phase of that, and then we expect to restart construction in May and have it done.
Okay. Right. All right, that's all I had. Do you have anything, Bob?
Well, I assume that rebuild is separate from the 34.5.
That is separate from the 34.5. So what that is doing away with a old, what we call North Main Street substation, and replacing it with a more effective setup.
All right.
All right, very well. If there's no other questions or comments on the leadership team template, we'll move on to the financial update, which is also in report package. Are there any questions or comments on the financial update for work? I didn't have it, but thank you. All right, if there's nothing with the financial update, we'll move on to strategic presentations. Agenda number 5. We have 2 this evening, and we have talk about projects and also customer moratoriums. How do you want to go forward first?
All right, you're lucky to hear from me tonight on the projects and grants. So I'll do that, and then we'll have Ruth take over for the customer moratorium. Right. So Steve, you don't mind? You got it over there, Steve? Jeff? Jeff, you running the show tonight? Split the duty. Oh, boy.
A little confidence.
I've got two qualified IT guys lost the way.
If I
We
run the
won't need
teams
either
and he
one of
runs the
them.
presentation, it looks better, so.
Hey, I can't disappoint now. It's all yours, Chris.
All right. All right, why don't you pull on to the next slide? We've been talking and approving projects piece by piece. We talked about a little in the budget, but we have, I would call it a transformational opportunity at MVU to upgrade and improve our infrastructure. And this is pulling it all together to show what we're going to be doing in the next 3 to 5 years with all of these federal programs that have come through. I know everybody's heard of the American Rescue Plan. That money is pretty much done this year. And that was all pretty much fed through the city government. And we had a few projects through that. Then came the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and they have also resurrected the congressionally directed spending, which is what used to be called earmarks. So we have received funding and money through every one of these projects. Some of these are being administered through DOE and through Department of Transportation, but some of these are being funneled through existing programs like the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and the Clean Water Fund. And something new that we have with some additional opportunities is through economic development and the CIF 2030, which is a Business Park North grant. There's also a portion of money that was provided directly to the state, and CMEG and all the member utilities are fighting to get our fair share of that. It's easily directed towards the investor owned, but we're trying to get at least 6%, and we're not saying that's as low as we want to go or as high as we want to go, but at least to get our fair share of that allocation. And that's money that's easily spent for things like doing, enhanced tree trimming, efficiency programs, things that we can easily use to improve our operations.
Chris, the pumping station, the new one that's being put in by the bridge, how are we paying for that? Is that just coming through are there any grants that would cover that?
That is, isn't that mostly, where's Larry at here? Larry, is sewer pump station?
What's that, Chris?
The Sherman Street pump station, all grant?
Yeah, that's being fully funded by the state of Connecticut. We're not paying a dime for that station.
Glad you asked, Bill, because I didn't include it in my presentation. So let me add some more things we need to worry about and make sure we're operational. But on all of these applications, all of these grants, it's not Larry putting together a grant for that or Barry or Eric. It takes a full team to put these applications together. We've got a grant writer who can help us, and that's doing some of the heavy lifting. But it takes operations, GIS, purchasing, finance, IT, and communications. So everybody in this room is rolling up their sleeves for each one of these grants. It's been an enormous amount of work, and we've been enormously successful.
Sorry,
Are you taking over now, Steve?
no, you want to make sure that, Michelle, I think got a text that people can't hear very well.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm just checking.
Oh, I thought she was-
Sorry.
Okay, I'll try to speak up a little as well.
Oh, maybe she is.
She's going down to that somebody. That's what I got out of it.
So there's a lot of information being poured out, a lot of notices of funding opportunities. And we wanted to make sure we're focusing on projects in our core business, in our long-term capital plan, items that will help us improve our systems. We prioritized it to make sure we had increased grant funding to make projects more affordable for our customers. And we expect to receive funding support for over $220 million of projects that have to be done in the next 3 to 5 years. So an enormous amount of funding. There you go. One more shot.
Greetings. Welcome aboard.
So the simplest of all these projects is our gas expansion. Nice and simple, Barry. Except we have $10 million to do work we had already planned to do, it's all right in our wheelhouse. We know exactly what to do and how to spend this money. We do not know any of the implementation details. They have not figured out how they're going to implement this program yet. We asked for $21.5 million for the project. We got the highest of anybody in the whole country with our 10 million. And the plan is in the next 2 quarters to apply for the additional 11.5 million. It's going to be a relatively easy lift because it's taking the same application, scrubbing out the roads we're going to do, the replacements, and then just bringing in the other ones. So the second phase is easy. The first phase, great job and great teamwork.
Are you applying to the same people,
Yes.
the same office? Well, why wouldn't they just provide the whole 21.5?
Because they didn't get that anyway. So large municipals like Memphis and Philadelphia, the munis in Mass, everybody at most got 10 million, but some got 1, some got 2 million, but at most anybody else got.
They said it's okay to come back and ask for more.
Yes.
They had a lot more applications than they anticipated,
Yeah.
and so there just was only so much to go around.
Right.
So Chris, I mean, this may all be very technical. Will this system be able to handle hydrogen? Should there ever be a switch from gas to
So,
hydrogen?
so there's a lot of complications to that, and that's something we don't know yet. Our plastic in all likelihood will be able to handle it. Some of our steel, we're gonna see what the science says.
Yeah.
And GTI and other research agencies are going through this process now. Nobody is providing hydrogen in pipes and getting natural gas systems.
And it's very expensive. But who knows?
Yeah, so we've got to be ready to pivot when that becomes, but I would expect it to be more of a blend to start, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And likewise, we used to blend propane into our system back in the day. It was problematic, but it was something we could use 2 fuels in our system. Hydrogen's a little different.
They went to full hydrogen, we have to recheck everything.
Just like in propane, if you go full propane. But we had a propane air mixture came in that provided about the same BTU content, and it blended with the natural gas, so we didn't have to, but.
There's a certain blend where you can just leave everything alone, but after that, you're gonna have to go back and adjust all the.
Right. Yeah. Okay, on to electric. We just found out recently that we did not get the grant application or selected for the $20 million 34.5 kV rate. And we are going to be reapplying in the 4th quarter for the second round. Regardless, we have money in the budget to get the design done, and we have a very good product for the application. So it was more selective than gas, and we'll see how we make out in the next round. But we'll get the design done, and if it doesn't happen, we'll be looking at financing options to get this thing done expediently if we don't get the next round.
What was the total cost of that project?
About $20 million.
Everything.
Yeah, to connect to 3 substations. Yeah.
Did they tell you why you didn't get selected or?
They did, and the good news out of that was we were able to take some of those lessons learned and actually apply it to our North Main Street grant. So we put together a pretty good package for North Main Street, and we're gonna be able to use probably 75% of what we put together for North Main Street, again, when we reapply for 34.5. So DOE has been really good about giving us feedback on those applications, and each time it strengthens the next application, so we're hopeful.
So that rolls right into the North Main Street reliability grant, $4.5 million ask, 67% grant, and we expect to hear sometime before summer whether we get approved for that one. And that's taking all of the circuits between here and 10th Street essentially, and putting a new conductor and hopefully much more reliable with Hendrix versus open arm construction. All right. Now, water is where we have the most experience. We've been doing water projects so long. The state has great confidence in us to do these projects, and they're really trying to make sure we get the maximum we can. And you also see very good grant percentages in the water side. So Stony Brook DAF, That's something that we just finished up in the fourth quarter of 2022, $8.6 million, 30% grant. And when we got that grant, we had to run the line out to spray to be able to get an enhanced grant. So by doing a community project, they gave us more than our fair share on that. The next project that just got completed is the Countryside Drive. We'll be talking about the public hearing today, and we'll be talking about that more at the next meeting. But another successful project, we got rid of a public or private well system that they did not want to run anymore. So it was a major asset and helped to the Department of Health. So they actually were able to get us an 83% grant for that roughly $750,000 project. So home run, and when you see the assessment numbers next month, you'll say, wow, our team did a great job, and Department of Health did a great job in helping these customers.
That's Cam Walton.
Yeah. Yep, Cam and Raul are our two up there, and on this one here, that had Maureen Matthews' attention. She really was a proponent of this project. So then we've got quite a few projects in progress. Caribou Drive, which is replacing asbestos cement pipe, that's a $2.4 million project where we're getting 47% grant. The lead and copper planning, which is coming to the end, and we're just about there. We're at our last few customers we need to do for the assessment, and that's a $500,000 effort at 47% grant. And if you look at the Yannick tank, this picture shows a little bit under the side. You're starting to see some rust coming through. You're seeing, it's time for that coating to happen. That's a $1.6 million project with 40% grant. So those three are all active right now. We also were able to get funding for $2.5 million of lead and copper service line replacement. So that's the first phase of replacing the customer-owned pipes. And we're getting 75% grant for that. So once again, extremely high grant percentage, much more than we expected. And then we have two aeration projects, and this reduces the disinfection byproducts in our tanks. Chlorine plus organics and age equals carcinogens, THMs, HA85s. These aeration systems will help improve water quality and allow us to basically have a lot less waste in our system by bleeding off those water that make the age come down. So two good projects and both 47% grant.
Chris, the GTHM levels were 66.9 mil. Well, that's kind of high.
It is high. 80 is the limit.
Yeah, 80 is the limit.
Yeah.
You see improvement. Well,
So
we've been able to do this.
So we were having the whole system run by Deep River. So you have a plant way over here, Stony Brook's way over here. Stony Brook was offline. Stony Brook only came online in the fall. So now we've got two systems feeding, so the age of the water gets a lot less. And Stony Brook is coming out with lower initial disinfection byproducts than Deep River. So the organics are less. So we're getting higher quality water out of Stony Brook, which has never happened. So we expect all those to come down, and then you throw in these two aeration mixers, it's going to make it even better. And we were under a consent agreement, and the state was so happy with our results, the consent agreement went away this year with the finalization of that last project. They could have kept a consent agreement on and said you need to do more, but they know it's going to be done. All right. So we got a couple of sewer projects in progress. The sewer plant design, which is just about ended, and was a $2.6 million project, and that was a 20% grant. So as soon as the bid is awarded, we go from design into construction, and that'll be coming soon.
Do we have any sense of where prices are going to come in?
I'll let you know tomorrow, Bob. I'm going to be a little late for the Business Park North meeting tomorrow because I do want to be at that bid opening tomorrow. Then I'll walk upstairs right afterwards. Okay. And then the other one is the South Thames Force Main, which is the one that's owned by the police station, runs over to the sewer plant. And you can see the temporary piping we have across the bridge there. It's needs to be done as soon as it can be done, and we're getting close to getting that started. So that's $3.5 million, 20% grant. So this is something where we were expecting that to be it's a combined system. We were hoping for that 50% grant. Best we can get is 20% on it. Yeah. Yeah. So next we have is the big nugget, and you know, I'll send something out with a high level ballpark where we are tomorrow. But that's expected to be $160 million project, and we're expecting this to come in at 27% grant. So water has taken the money and improved the grant percentages. We may have to do a little fighting to get better percentages at the sewer plant. Anything that handles nitrogen is supposed to be 30%, regular is 20%, and combined sewer overflow is 50%. We think that blended rate should be higher than this number, because that number includes a 5% legislative bump that we received from Kathy Austin back in 2014.
Would she get back to you on that?
Oh yeah, we know how to access it and use it. But, you know, we were hoping to be in the mid-30s.
Yeah.
So we'll see what everything comes in at. We don't know what the final number is going to be, and they have to give it back. DEP has to give it back to us. So that's going to be something where if the numbers come in high and we have an affordability analysis that says we can't afford this, there's going to be pushback. Can we get more grants? Can we spread it over a longer time? We may have to think a little outside the box on this one. And then the other planned project is the Greenville sewer lining, and we're working with EPA and Senator Blumenthal's office to figure out exactly how to use this money, and that's an earmark for $800,000, 100% grant. So it's a great project. Great that our politicians are taking care of us locally, but we don't have people who have done a lot of these type of projects administering it. And this may just get pushed right to the Clean Water Fund. I think that's how it's going to go. If that's the case, we'll be in a little better shape how to do it. All right. Now let's move on to the collaborative projects. The big nugget here is Business Park North. And I think everybody saw in the newspapers where Kevin Brown was able to get a CAF 2030 grant of $11.3 million. There's two pieces to that $11.3 million. Improving the utilities to get to the park, and then it's putting the road and utilities inside the park. So this one here, we've been looking at what the requirements are, and it looks like it's using all state procurement requirements. And we're going to have to sit down with Kevin Brown and Henry Resnick the next couple of weeks to kind of lay out how this is all going to work. We don't meet the requirements, for instance, of MBE, WBE, which is women-based enterprise or minority-based enterprise. So that has to be a percentage of the project. It's by American, but it's Bacon Davis. We may not be able to do this work ourselves. The original plan was to have most of our crews do most of this work off premise and have a GC put it in with the road inside the project. So we're getting all of our ducks in a row. What we think the requirements are, we'll sit down with the Business Park North folks and try to make sure we have it ready to go. The next one is the Groton Interconnect. That's a $1.6 million project, 50% grant. And once again, we're working on how to figure out the best way of doing that project. Doesn't necessarily fit well. So there maybe have to be some modifications to make that work. And the last one we have is the Boswell Water Main Grant. And that's running down Route 82, extending the water main all the way to the Montville line. That's $3 million, 25% grant, fully paid for by the town of Osram. So that's going to be, are they ready to pull the trigger? We have the funds available, and working with Glenn Pianca, the first selectman, Bill Ballinger, we'll make sure that when they're ready to go, we're ready to go.
Is that tying to something on the other end? Was it?
Ties in at the Optimus Healthcare, right at Noble Hill Road?
Right, it does not.
Yeah, Elmbrook. No, that's where we're going to just extend it
Right.
all the way to the Montville line up in Reading too.
When you get a little bit of Montville, does it connect anything at that point? It's going to dead end, okay.
Which is not a great thing unless you have big customers on the end. So Yeah, so we'll see what comes out there, but that takes care of some pollution and gives them an opportunity to get some other businesses along that route. Okay, speaking of another pollution solution, the weakest water main extension, that is moving forward as well. That's 100% ARP funded, $800,000, and this is going to serve 4 customers. So it's taking care of a problem, and we're not going to make any money on it, but it's not, we're not paying for it. And the last one that just recently came out, and it's kind of the full effects of this grant we don't quite know yet, is that there's an EV grant for the city where it's a $930,000 project for chargers, solar and vehicles, for electric vehicles. And we put together all the information for the city. They applied, or did we apply, Mary Lou? They applied, but we gave them all the information, and hopefully we'll get something on this one here.
So, okay, so vehicles, what does vehicle mean? They want to buy a
The
vehicle?
differential cost of a regular vehicle to an electric vehicle, will pick up that cost.
Okay, for a company, for a city.
For a city,
vehicle or-
city provided vehicle, yeah, it's all city, not us on this one here.
Oh, it's just
We
city, not us.
put in the chargers and we put in some solar to support the chargers. So once again, this will be all city funded and grant funded.
It's split equally between public works and planning department as far as the vehicles.
These are vehicles would be, tend to be trucks, or are they cars?
Both.
Planning department?
The end is the one actually was the grant. We assisted. And they combined.
Yeah, they're not the big fleet. Public Works is the huge fleet.
Yeah.
You know, you got a couple of building officials, a light officer, you know, there's not much for vehicles in the planning department. That's who's putting the grant together. So this is all easy, right? Free money. Let's talk about some challenges. We are well educated in the DWSRF and Clean Water Fund funding, and these all have basically the same requirements. Buy American, MBE, WBE, Davis-Bacon wages, certified payroll. The list goes on, and there's a lot of data that needs to be collected, and it's a lot of work on our finance and accounting team to make sure that we're meeting all the requirements, because they're all auditable and they will be audited. So, you know, anything that is through a conventional program, we've got that down. The congressionally directed spending, which are the earmarks, is a detailed administrative process regardless of the level of funding. So if they gave you $100,000 or they gave you $100 million, it's the same EPA environmental audit. And they're going to come down and do the audit. It's very complicated, and we're finding we've never done any of these, so we're finding out more and more some of the issues. Then you come into the grant administrator's experience. There's supposedly the government is hiring 1,000 new employees to administer these grants. What that means is we got 1,000 people who don't know what they're doing yet, and it's going to be a really tough road. Barry's going to be the first to feel this. Eric is having one of the reasons I think we had took so long to evaluate these grants that he's applied for is that they don't have good people to do it yet. It's going to take a while to build up that bench strength. They've never done this kind of work. And then even in Deep, it's been a complete turnover up there. And you know, you went out with them all, Bill, or you were the start of it. But it's going to be a challenge. Hank was our guy forever, and Hank's moved on, and so it's, you know, there's a learning curve, and there's a lot of taking a few steps back to educate things that we discussed 5 years ago that nobody remembers. So I think awarding this bid will be a challenge on the sewer side. We've already talked about supply chain issues, no surprises there, and impacts of inflation. We just saw the consumer price index came down to about 4% this year, going in the right direction, but still not great. But it's improving. Now, the other thing that we have a challenge on is our workforce capacity. These are expedited schedules. We're looking at these in the 10 and 20-year capital plans have to be done in 3 to 5 years. It is going to be a major impact on the people in this room and the people in this building. Our workforce is still recovering from COVID. We lost a lot of real quality people. And then we throw in a pension change in December, and we still, we lost another large amount of people. So a lot of knowledge went out the door in the last 2 years. And hiring process is getting much better. The city's starting to get caught up, but we have 9 interviews today, Mary? Michelle?
Michelle?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had, so it's a lot of work. We still have about 12 vacant positions. And we're gonna need additional project management and support for all these projects. That's gonna be hiring some new engineers and some new analysts. It's also more consultants and help us through this process. So we gotta be at the right size to make this all work. And put it in perspective, the average capital budget in a year is $12 million in the last 5 years or so. And for the next 5 years, and some of these may be expedited in 3, but over 5 years, it's at $44 million. So it's almost 4 times the amount of work that we're normally doing. And all of this work is not just more work, it's more record keeping, it's more making sure that we're getting everything done correctly. Very complicated. But a challenge. It will be. And let's finish on a high note. We have a great team to get it done. So, but you're going to be hearing a lot about some of the challenges we're seeing getting all this work done with the workforce that we have, and making sure we're doing it correctly.
Well, the obvious question is, we need some more people.
So we got to get the right people, and as we start gearing up, we may be coming forward and asking for more. But we, in the budget this year, which hopefully we'll get to and approve, we have 151 right now, Michelle.
139.
139, yeah.
We have 152.
Yeah. So we got a ways to go, and we will be leaning on our consultants a little more, and we may, we're going to find out where the holes are as we move along a little more. Today, we had, we just hired, promoted an analyst for our finance department a couple weeks ago. We got it back for the last time. We had interviews of 4 engineers today. Hopefully we'll have 1 to 2 will make the cut. So that's where we want to be on today's. But still a lot of holes, and some people are doing double duty. So.
Well, the benefit of all of this capital flowing into NPU is got to be worth a few more bodies to administer.
Yeah. But we're going to be looking to hire a gas engineer, and that's going to, that was not something we had applied for this. This is for the electrical engineer that left last fall. So, but we may have a project engineer and electrical engineer today. I think, have we already posted the gas engineer?
No.
Okay, we'll be getting that soon. And we're going to have to, look and see where we have to maybe do some cross training, help each other out. It's a team. We got to make sure there's a lot of we here, and it's not, the gas department, and I can't help the gas department. Or electric or whatever. It's got to be a we. It's got to be a team. And we can get this done.
All right. Chris, thank you. We'll talk about the moratorium now.
Ruth would love to talk about it.
All right. We're in luck. Ruth is here.
It'd be easier if it was just the same process all year round. Trust me.
I know.
I didn't even know that much.
Yeah, there are multiple versions.
Okay. Move to the next page, please. So the moratorium is from November 1st to May 1st. So we're coming up on the end of that. The qualifications for the moratorium to be hardship are receiving Social Security, unemployment, state or city assistance, serious illness, and by income. We refer customers to TVCCA to be qualified by income. Does double duty, gets them to prove what the income is for us so that we're not looking into that, and it gets these people into their system so they can get assistance if they need it. Next one, please. The moratorium the last few years, these are the hardship customers that we have. It went up significantly during COVID, and it's still high for what it's usually. Usually we're like between 1,400–1,500 a year. We've been over 2,000. So for the end of the moratorium, termination notices have been sent out. It's a 13-day notice. They started going out April 15th for the end of the moratorium, so that they're dated for May 2nd terminations. To stop the termination, we do need a minimum payment from the customers of 20% of the balance and an agreement for the remainder. Termination is always a last resort. We would much rather keep providing the electricity and get the payments in. We also offer multiple options for payment arrangements. So, we can stretch them out a little bit longer if we need to. And we have a matching payment program where we apply the credits for May 1st. So that also lowers the balance for customers that are on our matching payment program.
What is the average balance that people own, would you say? If you're looking at 20%, is it $1,000 or more?
It's usually a couple $1,000s on average. And
$400 or $500.
Yeah. And the housing units are the ones that are the most expensive. So they'll have a higher, because their gas bills in the winter are, let's see. So, and they're the ones that can't afford it the most. Next page, please. So the special payment arrangements that we make, the goal is to have them paid within 12 months. So we try to do, 3 months, 6 months, that type of thing to get caught up. But depending on what the balance is, we will extend it. Sometimes, there might be a circumstance where we need to go out a year and a half, 2 years to try to make it manageable for the customer to make the payments. We've got about 334 customers that are on special payment arrangements right now. That number fluctuates depending on what time of year it is. This time of year, we don't have as many customers on arrangements. They filed hardship and didn't need to really do anything over the winter. That number will increase in the next month or so. And right now, the past due balances for the customers that are on special payment arrangements is about $676,000 combined. So the graph of our special payment arrangements, the number of customers per year, again, COVID, it spiked. We had quite a few people, but as you can see, before that, we were much lower number. And the balances as well. On the next page, you'll see that the amounts outstanding on special payment arrangements were much higher for the pandemic period. Our matching payment program, we offer that to customers that receive energy assistance. They have to be a heating customer with us, gas or electric. We do qualify them through TVCCA again, and they have to have a minimum past due balance of at least $100 in order to qualify for that. We typically credit more than the $95,000 that we credited this year. It's usually, between $250,000 $300,000. With the amount of money that was coming in from agencies this past year, that helped considerably. So we didn't have as much money that we were crediting on the accounts. But it still helps 277 customers.
A lot of that ARP funding is pretty much done now, so it's going to be a little more challenging going forward.
Yes, yeah. The energy assistance was, their amounts were $800 to $1,000 per customer last year. This year, it's between $200 and $600. So it's a significant difference. We're working with Norwich Human Services. They have ARP funds. We're working with them to do a three-way matching payment program so that the customer will make a payment, Norwich Human Services using the ARPA money will make a payment, and then we will credit the same amount. So if the arrangement is $100, they would pay $100, Norwich Human Services would give $100, and we would credit $100 on the account as well. We're also working with them to do an energy and savings workshop. We're planning to do it quarterly. Our first one is actually this coming Thursday. So we'll be at Norwich Human Services. I don't know if it's their office really. It's
Human Street, that's where Kate Mildy's office is in that building.
Yeah. So we'll be at that building to have the workshop. We'll be going over the CHIP program, the lead program, matching payment programs, energy assistance. We have a list of things that we'll be going through. Most of these people are tenants, so not sure how much, for the CHIP program or Lantern Energy for the energy savings, how much they'll be able to take advantage of that, but we'll be bringing the information with us anyway. And Liberty Bank is also going to have a representative there to actually offer some budgeting assistance for anyone that's interested in that. Operation Fuel. We are a fuel bank for them, and the picture of Marla, she is one of our trained CSRs to take applications. We received $67,000, almost $68,000 this past fiscal year to help out 135 customers. So that's another successful program for us to have a couple of people trained on that. I think Kiana's picture was on a previous, yeah, she was on the matching payment program because she manages that. She's the other one that's trained for.
Has that number gone up? Has that number gone up?
It did this year. Yes, in the past, we usually get 40 to 50,000. Operation Fuel money went up this year too. Don't know if that's going to be sustained or not, just like the others, but LIWAP, so the water assistance program for low income. TVCCA is also administering that, just the money. So far, we've received $87,000 for 484 customers, which is a lot more than I thought that we would ever get. I was thinking $5,000 or so. So, and they will pay up to $1,000 per customer on those, so it's quite a bit. Energy assistance, TVCCA. We have Sally working in our office. She'll be there until at least the end of May taking applications for heating assistance. She'll take the applications for oil as well as kerosene as well as gas and electric. But it's a lot easier having her in our office to have the customers make the application than having them go over to Uncas on Thames to do that. Cost us about $35,000 a year to have her. This past year with the added funds, we got a little over $2 million, so it was well worth the investment on that. And the next page, 2 pages, will show the amount of money that we've received in recent years. Again, the COVID money has gone a long way. And when we started referring customers to TVCCA to be approved for hardship, their application numbers went up as well. It's good for both of us.
How does TVCCA funded?
State and federal. So yeah, they get LIHEAP money, the Low Income Energy Advisory Board, the program. But that comes from DSS and HHS, state and federal. And then the other agencies that we work with in the city, Norwich Human Services, of course, United Way, they have Project Warm Up. Soldier, Sailor, and Marine Fund will pay a month's utilities for any service member, current or previous. Area churches, Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, they help out quite a bit. The Jewish Federation will help. And we are a member of the LAI board. I participate in those meetings so that we have a say in how the money is going around. And then these agencies also offer more than just utility assistance. So if there's another need, they'll be able to help the customer with that as well. And that's it.
All right, well, thank you, Ruth. Just at a high level, call volume before the end of the moratorium and then when we start doing the moratorium shut-offs and notices.
We probably do, I'd say we average about 300 calls a day during the moratorium. That will probably get to 600-700 a day after that.
And a lot of
So
people
it's
coming in the
starting
door
to
as
ramp
well.
up, yeah, it's starting to ramp up now, because they know the routine, so they all start coming in and calling. But yeah, once the moratorium ends, we'll have CSRs that in a day take over 100 phone calls individually. So
So isn't there legislation that would extend the moratorium?
Yeah.
Mr. Riley, would you like to take that question, please?
So there was a bill that was introduced, and it was getting a great deal of attention, that would extend the moratorium from May 1st to October 1st, which would essentially extend it to 2 full years for many of our customers. 20% of our customers on hardship, that would have been a very significant obstacle for us. So we reached out through our lobbyist. We were in touch with the Senate chairman of the Energy Committee. I was in communication with him last night. And today I've been in touch with the legislative liaison for the Public Utility Regulatory Authority. The bill itself is not going to go forward because they need to have it pass the House, the Senate, pick the governor to sign it by Monday, which is May 1st. So Pura is going to either tomorrow or Thursday do it administratively, extend the moratorium until October 1st, which would then be till May 1st. But we have been given confirmation by both Senator Needleman and the Pura official that it would not apply to municipal utilities. It would only apply to the utilities that are regulated by Pura. So we would not be impacted by this. So the moratorium will end for us on May 1st. I've assured both Needleman and the Pura person that we're working very closely with our customers. We're committed to the moratorium, the prohibition on shutoffs after October 1st, as we have in the past. But this will allow us to manage it more carefully, more closely than a large utility would, without a huge financial impact on us, or less of a financial impact on us, but still allowing us to work with customers individually. So a lot of scrambling around the last couple of weeks, but it appears as though we've dodged. The issue has been resolved without hurting us.
Well, I mean, the legislation did not include state compensation.
No,
It did not include a provision for additional compensation. That was some of the discussion around it. But what they're saying is there's not the wherewithal or the bandwidth to get the bill done by Monday. They're just going to do it administratively, and perhaps Pura will be able to come up with some money. I think they put $1 million in there that would be at the chairman's discretion to help out with these sort of issues. But at this point, it doesn't impact us, and we're, at least at this point, won't believe it until we see it writing out from under.
I know in the past, you said you try to stay consistent with Pura requirements, so this is a deviation.
This would be a deviation, but it's a little, but we would be consistent with it. What this is doing is a one-time extension of the moratorium. It doesn't change the state law. It's just doing it for 6 months. So we would still be consistent as of October 1st. We would be back handling the moratorium and customers at risk the same way we have in the past. But it comes down to a customer doesn't pay a utility bill for 2 years. That 20% is pretty darn significant.
Yeah.
And that payback is very difficult. It's digging a bigger hole. Now, if they were funding this, those payments through other means, that would be a service to the customer. This is not necessarily a good service to the customer. It's going to make it an insurmountable hole to get out of.
Good job explaining to them.
jumped on. But if I understand it, an Eversource customer will have a moratorium until October, and a Norwich customer will not, is that right?
So there's no moratorium all summer for us. And then we go in November in the moratorium. They will just, somebody who doesn't want to pay is not going to pay for 2 years.
And the Norwich customer will not be accruing a balance at 18% a year and accruing a bill that's not being paid as well. So someone that has, say, a $1,500 bill, the example we used, if they didn't pay their bill for another year and a half, $155, $200 a month, plus 18% on their $1,500 balance, their balance would be $4,500. And to do a matching payment on that, their $155 bill would go up to $429, which would be like a 262% increase on what their monthly bill is. And that's under the impression that they're trying to help someone get through a challenging time. Their balances would explode, and it would take them that much longer to get back on track. If they
Well, it's good to see the SBA for coming down, both in the balance and the number of customers, so that was encouraging. And so the moratorium is for about 6 months, and then our goal is to get people paid up within 12 months. So if it's a one-time thing where you lost your job or something and you're back in your employee, then that seems like a reasonable plan. But
And that's when we stretch it out even longer. So if somebody has a medical emergency, something that is a temporary, roadblock, lost your job, I have a new job, we'll give you some time to, extra time. But people who come on and go off, it's.
12 months, some people need,
Yeah.
4 months, 6
Sure.
months, so.
I know I've asked this before, but we have 20,000 customers roughly. There has to be a few that are just never going to get caught up, and we know that. And we help them as much as we can, and they just go on, and we still supply services, and they rack up an unpaid bill, and they'll.
So,
That's just a
so the Hartford customers, they're coming on, going off, coming on, going off. The medical note customers are the ones where we have much more difficulty ever getting paid. And that's cost of doing business.
Eversource is going through the same thing. It's just there, way over money. They were a couple months of experience.
But you talk to a live person, we try to do as best as we can. We help the customers. TVCCA gives other services to these customers who need other rental assistance or other things. We try to do our best, and we got a great team over there who has to deal with these difficult situations every day.
That's what we're beyond.
All right, we're a public utility, so our job is to serve the public. There you go. All right, well, thank you, Ruth. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris Riley.
And the other thing we're looking at is a low-income rate as a part of the next rate track. And we'll be having some discussions with our rate consultant as we're doing our cost of service in the summer time frame. Hopefully be able to have some good dialogue between board, staff, and our consultants. Come to a good place, have the public hearing late summer, early fall, and have rates ready to go for the next 3 years in November.
Okay, if there's no other discussions on the strategic presentations, we'll move on to action items. We have 2 this evening. The first one is the Countryside Public Hearing Update. Chris, would you provide a quick overview of that, please?
I'm going to give it to you at the 100,000 foot level, and then next month we'll have Mary Lou go over construction. Laura and her team will go over the assessment process, and we'll have the attorney here to talk about the assessments, because we don't do assessments very often. And the last one was the Newton Street sewer project, which was 8 years ago, maybe 13. Okay, so it's quite a while. So we were able to get the project done for $768,000. We got $637,000 in grants. So there's a loan of $130,000. That's spread over 16 properties. We started off with 17, but when we did the final analysis, one was not a buildable lot, so it trimmed it down to 16. And the amount of each assessment is going to be ballpark $2,800. And the first assessment will be in the October timeframe. We need to set the public hearing, and anyone, we're gonna invite all of the customers if they want to come in and talk or have any issues with the assessments. And then once this is passed, it gets posted and then it becomes part of their utility bill.
So how many months is that paid over?
20 years.
20 years for $2,800?
That's what we're bonding the money for. And was it 2% bond?
Yeah, it's roughly about $20.
The city handles that payment?
No, actually, that's actually Bruce's team.
Yeah, so some
Laura
of
sets
my
it up.
team has been working with them on Bruce's team. They've been going through the process to make that a very straightforward process. That customers should be able to handle, so. Looks good.
This is different than the sewer assessments because the city bonds the sewer assessments. This is completely paid for by clean water, drinking water money and through the ratepayers.
Did you anticipate any problems?
No. Hugely successful. There was one customer who was a little, I'll say, ornery, but that nobody wanted to run the system. So if you know, and he came around, but I think there was a lot of peer pressure from the other 15 because once again, running a small system, doing the testing, doing the maintenance, having generators running, and we have a problem. They got a lot of the same requirements as we do for 20,000 customers.
No, he doesn't have the option of opting out of that point. He can't put it in his own well and say, I'm not paying.
Uncas Health will not permit a well within 200 feet of a public water supply.
Okay. All right, so we have to set a public hearing, and that will require a vote. So the public hearing will be 6 p.m. at our next meeting, I believe, Tuesday, May 23rd. And I'll entertain a motion for that.
I'll make that one.
Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, is there any discussion on the public hearing for the Countryside Water Project? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. And secondly, we have a budget discussions. I believe this is our second, or is it the third?
We had it at 2 separate finance and audit committee meetings. Then we presented to the entire board and we gave a month for questions and any follow-up, and love to hear any discussion on this tonight. If there's any additional.
Okay, so is it going to be a presentation or not?
No presentation. We can bring up any details or discuss any details. And that's why everybody's here tonight to answer any questions.
Okay. All right, are there any questions concerning the 2024 budget?
I have one minor thing. I've been asked by 1 million NCDC people why our allocation to them is $246,000 and maybe not even 246 even. I don't know if it's some additional $100 or something. And it just sticks out like a sore thumb. I think we'd be way better off just doing 250. It's not going to make any difference in a $107 million budget, but it's just not. It's not normally done like that. It's normally even amounts.
Yeah, we have a formula to give a target, and when we presented that formula, we said the board has the latitude to go up or down based on that. That's a suggested target. Our policy says here is a good place to start, and it's up to the board's directive whether we go up or down from that. The budget does not change if we, as long as we stay below that roughly 650,000, which is total economic development money. So this does not require a change in the budget, and it is something that can easily be done, and it's whatever the board would like to have.
I think the only other factor is the last time we increased NCDC's allocation, we paired it with deciding to do away with free internet and utilities to the foundry and instead have them pay for the foundry. So we increased our grant to NCDC, but a little more than half of it came back to us in terms of fees. And, you know, we've raised our rates since then. So quite frankly, I'm not sure that a $4,000 change is not simply keeping them even in terms of fees, but it's up to everybody. I mean, this is not gonna destroy any organization, but I just,
So we review the calculation every year to come up with a figure?
As of this year, yes.
I don't know, that's an issue, but.
Yes, yeah, no, that's the policy, and next year, if we grow, in our system, there's a chance, go up significantly.
Okay,
So it's based on taking out the PPA, PGA.
okay.
so if this was 252, I'd be happy to do it.
Yes.
I have no problem with that figure, but, okay, so we do a calculation, we grow fancy because we're engineers and all that. And we have an oddball number, which is 246.
Yep.
And next we do the calculation, this is 251.
Yep.
We keep it at 250, and we raise it to 255. What is the right gradation where it's not an odd number? Yes, that's my question.
At the discretion of the board, so, staff is not gonna have any problem, anywhere in that range, and, it's up to the board, so. If
All right.
next year it's 251, you can say 255, you can say 250, or you can come up with something different.
Okay, we need to vote for this?
Just need to have a vote on this, or say, make a motion to amend the budget to include that, the number you guys like, and then if there's any other questions on the budget, we'll go there.
I'll move the NCDC application.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. All right, I'll entertain a motion. I think that's a motion. Do I hear a second? Sean, second. All right. Is there any discussion on amending the budget to increase the NCDC contribution? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. All right, thank you, Robert. All right, back.
I'm sorry, did you vote on the actual budget
No.
or just that?
No,
Okay.
Just the,
Just checking.
All right. Okay, so back to the 2024 budget. Is there any discussion? Everyone's here. I don't have anything to add on the budget myself, but if anybody here wants to add questions or comments? All right.
I think it looks good.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming to answer questions. Sorry we didn't have any of you this evening. However, all that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2024 budget. Thank you, William. I have a second from Robert. All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. The budget is approved at the board level. Congratulations. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
All right. All right, that brings us to agenda item 7, which is there any additional business to come before this board this evening?
We do have, economic development and finance and audit committees, subcommittee meetings, scheduled for next week, and, Bob's got the agenda for, draft agenda to look at, and we'll get that finalized in the next few days. And likewise, we reached out to Mike to get his approval.
When is the schedule for the economic development?
I always get confused which one's Monday, which one's Tuesday.
Monday is Tuesday. Monday is September.
Both 1 o'clock, Monday and Tuesday. And economic development first.
Okay. Yeah, so I have one small comment. I have a friend at work that's interested in putting in geothermal. He lived in a different town, but he heard that I did it. He kept asking, "You get your bill? I want to know how much you saved." Okay, all right, Cyril, I will do that. So I sat down with my bill, which is a comparison to last year. And then I had to go figure out, well, was last year warmer or hotter? And I found a website that told me that. And it said it was roughly the same temperature from last year, in the same interval. Did all the math. It came out that my bill, the heating, there was all heating in that period. It was cut almost in half. Almost.
Including your niece living room?
No, I had to wait for my niece to move out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but there you go. There you go. I told, I Cyril wanted it for the whole month. I said, yeah, wait for Michelle to move out, and then I'll give you a number, okay? So almost like that.
And what did your consultant guarantee? Or did you have a performance
Well,
guarantee?
They advertise a coefficient of performance of 4. However, if you're comparing it to burning of fuel, you got to factor in the efficiency of making electricity. So I was downgraded by that. So it should work out to about a factor of 2. And I had a factor of almost 2. So I think it all worked out, at least by my numbers.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice when you hear legitimate contractors doing good work and getting their performance.
All right.
So one other quick potential issue, I mean, just as a comment, was the CMAQ report is not on the agenda.
There was no meeting since our last meeting.
Yeah, I understand that, but there has been an issue that has kind of come up, and I've asked Chris to put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
But basically, David Silverstone, who is the state-appointed taxpayer representative to CMAQ, and actually used to be our lawyer, from what I understand, noticed that there is a trust fund at CMAQ, separate and distinct from the rate stabilization trust fund. And there seems to be a lot of uncertainty about what its purpose is, whether it is best recalled by the municipal utilities to be used by them individually, because they each own a share of the trust fund. And it was on the risk management committee agenda last week. It's on the budget committee meeting agenda tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but it's north of $20 million. And I mean, I would just guess Norwich's share of it is probably 4. I was going to say more than that, but it's 4. Okay. So it's something we're going to have to discuss in the future. We'll learn more about it tomorrow and as time goes on. I mean, it's a lot of money that could potentially be kept at CMAQ and invested basically in short term, right? It could be recalled by NPU and used for a project. Who knows? But you know, $4 million is not bad among friends.
So I can't say I'm 100% correct on history. There's 3 times I know of that it's been used.
Okay.
Back in the 95 timeframe, 96, to put in the Greenville fish lift. Money was borrowed, fish lift was installed, money was paid back into the trust. We did it again in roughly 2002 for the Ockham fish ladder. Same thing, money borrowed, repaid, and done. And in 2014, I believe, we had a rate stabilization fund go in a negative balance. And we did not correct the rate stabilization or the PEA quickly enough. We went into the negative and we transferred money from the trust fund to the rate stabilization fund. Those are the 3 times I know about. We also think it was used to back up some CMAQ credit at one time, but CMAQ cannot find that information. That was in that 2008 timeframe.
At least according to David Silverstone, one of the rating agencies looks at it, another one of the rating agencies omits it. And even in the case of the rating agency that looks at it, it's not big enough to cause a difference in our rating. I don't know how he knows that. That's what he said.
Yeah, and I believe we'll be able to talk to that a little more tomorrow. And it's one of those things where the rating agency, some is objective, some is subjective. And it's not pure science. It's not just looking at the numbers and don't know really what the impact is. And that would have to be a question.
What was the genesis of the trust fund? Did anybody remember?
Deregulation was a big piece of it. When we had stranded debt and we had loans and obligations to pay back to Millstone. So when that was happening, they wanted to make sure there was plenty of money in the trust in case Eversource was in a more competitive position than we were.
All right, I'm not sure I understand that, but I'm not gonna belabor I'm not gonna delay the meeting here. We're gonna talk about this next month?
Next month, yes.
All right, okay.
It's on the draft agenda
I
already.
guess that's what I'm trying to understand, if possible. I'm not a financial person, but understanding where the genesis of it was, what was it intended for? We're still using it for that. And if we're not, should we liquidate it and put it somewhere else? That's all. All right, thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Is there any additional business to come before this board this evening? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, William. All right. Have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 23rd. Hope to see you all then.
What's that usually?